The latest generation of Beyblade, Beyblade X, made its official Western release on June 1st, 2024. And since then, we've seen tons of awesome and not so awesome releases. So in this video, we're going to be unboxing every single one of them. So get some popcorn, hit that like button, hit subscribe to join the Nook Nation, and now let's begin one of the longest Beyblade X unboxing marathons. Beyblade X's official Western launch was June 1st, although it took until like mid-July for most people to finally see Hasbro's introductory first wave in their stores. Wave 1 was absolutely huge, with starters, boosters, double packs, and more. But to start us off, let's look at the starters first. Wave 1 had 4 different starters to pick from. However, all of these bays are so crucial to the anime that making a choice is kinda tough. But we have to start with the bay that kicked off the entire generation. Sword Dran was the first X Beyblade ever released, and is used by Jackson Cross in the anime. While somewhat simple in concept, it has a flat attack bit with great burst resistance, the 3-sided 360 ratchet in a nice blue and clear color, as well as the aggressive Sword Dran blade. For the competitive bladers out there, even with a ton of options now available, Sword Dran is still an attack staple. Since this was a starter, it also comes with a tiny little launcher, which is fine, but there's definitely better options out there. And if you want to know more, check out my full launcher guide video. Shameless promotion, I know. This video is all about Hasbro Beyblade X. But if you guys want to get some of the latest Takara Tomy releases, go and check out sponsor of the channel Mall of Toys. They have all of the X bays you may need, including pre-orders for the upcoming Silver Wolf and BX37 motorized stadium. So go and check out sponsor of the channel Mall of Toys, link in the description down below, and make sure you use code ilinnuc to get 5% off. Next, we have Scythe Incendio, used by the unluckiest main character of all time, Robin Kazami. Scythe is a balance type bay that is actually one of the best blades in the entire game. We already talked about the launcher, so we'll skip those going forward. The parts for Scythe are pretty good as well. For the bit, we have taper, which I've never enjoyed using. However, it definitely has its fans and competitive uses. The ratchet is 460, and this is definitely the bay's weak point. 4-sided ratchets usually have the worst burst resistance because of their square shape, and the protrusions become a pretty easy target. Finally, we have the blade. Scythe Incendio is rather round and balanced, and even though it's not the heaviest bay out there, that shape makes this a stamina beast, and it is one of the best stamina-oriented blades in the entire game. Also, that flaming skull motif looks super cool even now. The next 2 starters are not my favorite releases. First, we have Arrow Wizard, used by Multi Nana Iro, and while there's a lot to like here, I'm just not really sold. Looking at the parts, it has the ball bit, which is top tier for stamina and defense combos. It also has the 480 ratchet, which is a worse version of 460. The Arrow Wizard blade, while being pretty round, is not particularly great at anything. The final Wave 1 starter is Helm Knight, used also by Multi Nana Iro. Helm Knight isn't a bay that I regularly use, however, it definitely has a small but dedicated fan base behind it. Anytime I mention my dislike for this bay, there's always a few people commenting about my L take. The bit is needle, which is pretty solid for recoil control, although it isn't the most balanced option out there. The green and clear 380 ratchet is pretty decent as well, at least better than 460 and 480 for most uses. And then there's the Helm Knight blade. Helm Knight, I think, was beloved for so long because most defense types in Beyblade X have some pretty major flaws, like balance and especially weight, and Helm acted as the best of Beyblade X's worst typing. Recently, we've seen some pretty solid defense types release from Takara Tomy, so I don't really hear people talk about this Bey much anymore. Now let's move on to the boosters for Wave 1, which has some really interesting Beys. The most interesting is easily Keel Shark. Keel Shark is one of, if not the best value in Beyblade X right now, as the USD price for this is $7.99. And what you get for that price is the hyper-aggressive low flat bit, which is shorter and faster than normal flat. You also get the 360 ratchet in a nice purple color, and the star of the show, Keel Shark. Shark is a two-sided attack blade that hits extremely hard at the cost of pretty poor stamina. If your playstyle is boom or doom, this is the perfect option for you.
Double chunk chocolate cookie!
The following boosters aren't as great. Horn Rhino is pretty laughably bad. The parts here are just horrible. There's the spike bit, which is like a micro needle, and it's genuinely the worst bit in the entire game. 380 is okay, I guess, and the Horn Rhino blade is just bad. I know there are some Rhino fans out there that swear by this blade as an attack type or something. Just no thanks. I don't like this. Talon Terra is the first Hasbro exclusive Bey in this video, and we may be starting off somewhat strong. First, I need to explain what Hasbro exclusives actually are. These Beys are not 100% unique designs. They're actually inspired off of existing Beyblade releases. Talon Terra is a remix of Tail Viper, Samurai Steel is a remix of Claw Leon, etc. This exclusive philosophy extends to collab Beys as well, such as the Transformers and Marvel releases. Now, I'm not unboxing the collab Beys in this video because they feel so separate from the main lineup. However, I do have a video about the Spider-Man and Venom collab Beys if you're interested, and I'll probably have videos on the other Beys at some point. So, back to Talon Terra. Talon has the ball bit, which is really good, 380, which is okay, and I feel like I've already mentioned this ratchet a ton of times today. And the Talon Terra blade has also shown to be pretty decent in some scenarios, but it's not really a must-buy. I don't think the next exclusive, Samurai Steel, is a must-buy either, and it also has less meta parts. It has the taper bit, which is good, and the 480 ratchet, not so much. And then the Samurai Steel blade is light and just not a great shape for really any use other than against certain attack types. I love the idea of a Samurai Bey though, so I'm thrilled that we're going to be getting Samurai Saber from Takara Tomy in November of this year, a sort of evolution to a Hasbro exclusive. As we continue through Wave 1, now we need to talk about the double packs. The double packs are probably the least exciting releases in the entire lineup, at least for Wave 1. The first one is the Chain Incendio and Arrow Wizard pack. From a value standpoint, this pack is really strong. The Takara Tomy version of Chain Incendio, Hell's Chain, was only available in a triple deck set, which makes it a little bit more difficult to get. So this Hasbro version, being in a double pack, is nice. However, there was a bit of a controversy with this release. Tearing the box open, let's go ahead and look at the parts. For Arrow, we get 460 and the needle bit in green, which I guess matches the Arrow Wizard blade, but I don't really care about this Bey that much. For Chain, we get the bit HT or high taper. Like how low flat is the low version of flat, high taper is the taller version of taper. And that's really it. The ratchet is 560, or it's supposed to be. Going back to the controversy I mentioned earlier, whenever this pack released, bladers around the world noticed that sometimes they got 580 instead of 560. It's unknown how deep this issue was. It's also unknown if Hasbro made any corrections behind the scenes, but quite a few people got the wrong part. Luckily, I got 560 as intended, which is great because 560 is my favorite ratchet in the entire game, especially this really nice color scheme. The Chain Incendio blade is also really solid for stamina combos, but I don't think it ever got to Scythe's level of usage and popularity. The next pack is Tail Viper and a Red Sword Dran. I love this pack, and it's also such a good value if you know about how Takara Tomy released these bays before Hasbro made them more accessible. Red Sword Dran has literally all the same parts as the original, but in a nice crimson red color scheme. To get this bay originally, you had to get a giant expensive starter set, so props to Hasbro. Then there's Tail Viper, which has the goated stamina bit orb, and is it just me, or has orb always looked kind of funny? There's also the 580 Ratchet, which is still pretty good despite being a bit taller. And then there is the Tail Viper blade. I'm not really sure how strong this blade is, but it doesn't seem to get that much usage at tournaments, at least at this point. It originally released in a random booster select though, so once again, big props to Hasbro for making it more accessible. The final double pack is probably the worst one. Keel Shark in a Mountain Dew green color scheme is awesome, but that's kinda where the magic stops. I don't really care to get yet another flat bit or 380, because I feel like I've mentioned those parts a lot already, and we're still in Wave 1. This double pack comes with another Hasbro exclusive, but this exclusive won't be exclusive for that long. Knife Shinobi is paired with the HN bit, or High Needle. I think this is a better part than the original version of Needle, which is cool, I guess. The wacky color scheme of 480 is interesting, I guess, but it's definitely different than the color that's on the box, so how did this happen? And finally, Knife Shinobi just isn't that good. It's based on Horn Rhino in shape, so it's light and pretty recoil prone. It's also not really an exclusive because the upcoming game Beyblade Zone comes packaged with a special metal coat version of Shinobi Knife, and that looks a lot better. Before we move on to Wave 2, there's a few more things to cover. First is the remake to the OG Dranzer S. To celebrate Beyblade's 25th anniversary, Takara Tomy launched the Crossover Project, which seeks to remake fan-favorite bays from previous generations in the new X system. The first Beyblade in that project was Dranzer S. We didn't know if Hasbro was going to do that project as well, so imagine our surprise when not only did we get this remake, but we also got region-exclusive variants. The one I have is the red version, which I've seen in North America, South America, and Australia. There's also a Seafoam green that's exclusive to Europe, and I assume the original blue color is Asia-specific, if all three are connected like that. It's a really cool idea, and I can't wait to see more, but this bay does kinda suck. It's super light, not a lot of metal, and it's very apparent that they didn't want this bay to compete against the new X designs. Next up is the best Beyblade X pack that money can buy, and it's the Soar Phoenix Deluxe String Launcher set. In this set, not only do you get a top-tier bay, but a top-tier launcher as well. Currently, this set is the only way you can get a Hasbro string launcher at all, so that's a plus. Soar Phoenix is absurdly good as well in multiple aspects. The bit is GF, or gear flat, another really aggressive bit and probably Phoenix's worst part. Then the 960 ratchet is probably the best ratchet in the entire game, because it's short and it's low profile, giving it top tier burst resistance. Finally, the Soar Phoenix blade is beautiful with its bright red metal coat and the sprawling, fiery phoenix motif in the middle. The blade is also super heavy, and with the right parts and enough blader spirit, is the best attack type in the entire game. Buying just this set means you have a top-tier launcher, blade, and ratchet. And because of that, this is the set I always recommend to new players. The final Wave 1 release was the Extreme Battle Set, and this is another release I always recommend to new players. It comes with 2 bays, 2 tiny little baby launchers, and the Extreme Stadium. The bays are Dagger Dran and Tusk Mammoth. Tusk is a Hasbro exclusive based on Scythe Incendio, and comes with all of the same parts, just in a different color. Dagger Dran, however, is definitely more unique. Dagger is a barrage attacking variant to Sword Dran, and that makes its attack power a little bit weaker as well. The 460 ratchet looks really good in this blue and white, but it's kinda like putting makeup on a pig. The best part of the bay is the bit Rush. Rush is a small flat bit with a changed up gear ratio, focusing on more rapid attacks. It's also one of the best attack bits in the game, so it's kind of unfortunate that the only way to get it is in this big battle set, or the somewhat smaller triple set from Takara Tomy that's frequently sold out. The most important part of the entire set, and maybe for the entire game, is the stadium. The X system works so well because of the accelerator rail innovation. You need that rail for the system to work properly. Now, there is a much cheaper bucket stadium, but that stadium has notable issues regarding safety, quality, and the rail being much worse than on the set version. I didn't even buy the bucket stadium for this video because this one is just so much better. If you don't have an X stadium yet, this one or the larger Takara Tomy ones are worth the investment. With Wave 1 of Hasbro's Beyblade X hitting full saturation across North America in mid to late July, people started to look towards the future. What could Wave 2 look like, and when would it release? Well, they didn't have to ask that question for that long, as Wave 2 packs started trickling out into the wild, seemingly way ahead of time. Beyblade store Bays and Bricks randomly listed 2 starters, Claw Leon and Lance Knight, for sale in late July. And by July 22nd, the first YouTube unboxings started to go live. Not even 2 months after the official Western launch of Beyblade X, new products were leaking out months ahead of time. A few weeks later, Wave 2 double packs were spotted, and boosters started to pop up here and there, kind of randomly. And according to Amazon, the official release for a lot of this stuff was October 1st. It makes me kind of wonder when we'll start to see Wave 3 leak into the wild. It did. While getting all the bays together and making this video, some of the Wave 3 starters were actually spotted in Illinois. So, that's unfortunate for me. Wave 2 only saw 2 starter releases, Claw Leon and Lance Knight. Lance is a variant / upgrade to Helm Knight, and is another bay used by Multi-Nana Iro. It has the high needle bits, which I've already talked about earlier, and the 480 ratchet, which I've mentioned like 30 times. The new part though is the Lance Knight blade. This blade is supposed to prioritize counter-attacking. At least that's what it's supposed to do, and that's what it does in the anime. But in real-world usage, I have no idea, okay? Lance is one of the most forgotten X-Bays ever, and people just rarely talk about it. Claw Leon is much more interesting. The original Japanese release, Leon Claw, is a staple in current Beyblade community culture, as it's become both an inside joke and also a symbol of perseverance. Content creator Nizuma Blader has adopted this bay as a major symbol of his channel, making several combo videos, guides, and even ranked tournaments attempting to use Leon Claw as the star of his deck. While it may not be a top-tier bay, it's hard not to want the little lion to succeed. The point bit is fantastic, and is almost always one of the very first parts people use when they try and build new combos. The 560 ratchet, I've already said, is one of my favorite ratchets due to its bulk and armored aesthetic. Then Claw Leon is a 5-sided balance bay with not a lot of power behind its roar. Not quite the king of the jungle. At least not yet. Wave 2's booster releases continue this tradition of really good value. The first two I want to talk about are the Hasbro exclusives. First up is Savage Bear, and this is kind of garbage. It's another retooling of Rhino Horn with the same parts, an ugly yellow spike bit, a McDonald's 360, and then the multicolor Savage Bear blade. I actually kinda like this wacky color scheme. With X-Bays usually being very color coordinated, I don't mind the occasional random mix like we see here. Bear, like Shinobi from earlier, is also no longer a full Hasbro exclusive. Takara Tomi's BX37 motorized stadium comes with a version of Savage Bear with different parts and different colors called Bear Scratch. It seems like most people like the Takara Tomy one better, but I like Savage Bear as a name, and I like the weird color scheme too. Then there's the king of the Wave 2 booster lineup with Roar Tyranno. Roar Tyranno is a remix of Soar Phoenix, which is great, actually. If you're gonna remix a bay, let it be one of the very best ones. Roar comes with the same part combo as well, with a blue GF bit, and an amazing white and blue 960. I'm definitely gonna be using this one for combos. And the blade keeps Phoenix's triangular shape as well. Roar is a little bit lighter and has slightly worse stamina than Phoenix, but being a little bit worse than a 10 out of 10 is fine. I'll take an 8 out of 10 any day. Next up, we have Sting Unicorn, and I actually like this bay quite a lot, actually. It's one of those that's fun, but not amazing. The bit is GP, or gear point. Gear flat was a flat with gears going all the way down, and gear point is the same idea, but for point. The 560 ratchet is great as mentioned before, but this is my favorite color version of 560. I always try and use it in combos whenever I can. Then there's the Sting Unicorn Blade. If you're a longtime Beyblade fan, this bay probably heavily reminds you of Rey Unicorno from Metal Fight, and I think that was intentional. The gimmick here is that the blade is more jagged on one side than the other, and a lot of people had tons of competitive success with it, but I just never mastered it, I guess. The last booster is probably the best if you're a hardcore competitive meta player. It's a yellow Scythe Incendio on 380 and Ball. Ball is great, of course, 380 is solid, and Scythe Incendio is obviously fantastic. You could probably use this bay stock at a tournament and do pretty well. Moving on to the double packs in Wave 2, I think these are still the least exciting products in the wave. Starting with Bite Croc and Sting Unicorn, we get a pretty good mix of parts and wacky color schemes. Unicorn comes with the point bit in an amazing pastel blue color. I have no idea why I like this color so much, but more pastels, please and thank you. The 460 ratchet is probably the most pink color part I've seen from Beyblade in years, which I like, but kinda sad it's on 460 though. Unicorn itself is pretty ugly to most people, I think. Definitely an odd mix of blues and pinks and a yellowish, but I put it in the same tier as Savage Bear, where I can appreciate the weirdness. The better bay though is definitely Bite Croc. This Hasbro exclusive is a remix of Keel Shark, so that's good already, and it has the same parts as well. An all-blue version of 360 looks amazing and would be perfect for those aesthetic combo builders. And Low Flat is more of a faded grayish blue color. The blade of Bite Croc has a kind of cartoony crocodile motif, which I think is okay. However, metal detailing around the edges is fantastic, and it's hard not to appreciate it. The next two packs aren't great. First is Yell Kong and Helm Knight. These bays look nice visually, but it's kind of hard to care about them, especially if you're not a I have to have everything sort of collector. The purple helm is my favorite color version of the bay, but I don't use helm in combos, so meh. Taper is good and 580 is good as well. The other bay in the pack, Yell Kong, is a Hasbro exclusive that looks pretty tough from the top. Whenever you see the side view, it's so puny and lightweight. The parts are nothing special either, a kind of ugly version of 360, as well as Gear Ball. Gear Ball is like Gear Point and Gear Flat, but you kind of don't want your stamina type bay flying around everywhere, so what's the advantage in using it? And now we have our very final release, Gale Wyvern and Tail Viper. First off, let's look at the value. This is similar to the Red Sword Dran and Tail Viper set from earlier, where the value is better than the bays you actually get. This yellow Tail Viper is on 380 and high needle, kind of mid combo, but it was also in that random booster select I mentioned earlier. However, it wasn't the prize bay, so not as many people are going to care about it. The other bay in the pack, Gale Wyvern, was a standard random booster prize, so it was actually pretty expensive and hard to get for a good price. It also has 580 and Gear Ball for the parts, which I'm not really jumping for joy at either. And with that, we are done with our Hasbro Beyblade X unboxing marathon. Which of the bays that I opened up today are your favorites, and which are your least favorites if you have them? And of course, if you guys disagreed with any of my takes in this video, let me know in the comments down below. But hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Have fun, and bay away.